صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت السميع العليم. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانزل علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانزل علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانزل علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. Inshallah, I'm going to begin by going over the reading that we did. How many people actually had the book and were able to read it? If you're reading in Arabic, are you reading Ibn Hisham? Yeah. It's pretty much the same. It's the Mukhtasar of Ibn Hisham. Yeah. You should get it. They probably have it at the... It's the same. If you can read Arabic, I would suggest reading the Mukhtasar of Ibn Hisham. If you can't read Arabic, I would suggest reading Ling's book, Martin Ling's Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, based on the earliest sources. And you can supplement it with other books. I don't know about the Rahiq al-Makhtoum, but it won an award for the best seerah in Arabic, so I don't know. It's been translated into English. So, a few things. I'm also going to point out some of the things that are wrong with this book, which is important. It's a good book. I think he did a brilliant job, but there are things that possibly from his own Christian background, I don't know. He's a Muslim, but he was a Christian before he was a Muslim, and he's an extremely educated person. So there's some things in there. First thing, he begins talking about the book of Genesis, which I think is somewhat alien to the Islamic tradition, but it's significant because we do believe in the Torah. And also remember that he's writing also for non-Muslims, many of whom are Christians, and so he's obviously trying to make some connections for them to relate these events to their own historical background. And so he begins by mentioning that Ibrahim alayhi salam was without child. His wife, Sarah, did not have children. She was barren. And according to the Old Testament, God, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, told Ibrahim alayhi salam to look towards the heavens, and he told him that count the stars if you're able to number them, and he looked up and he said, so shall your seed be. In other words, you're going to have so many children. Because he was barren, and obviously, particularly people who, in this culture, for some people it's not really a problem. In fact, a lot of people now don't want children. In traditional cultures, and certainly in ancient cultures, that was a very big and important part of life. If you did not have children, it was like you didn't have anything, whether you had wealth or not. And so that's important to recognize that. And also for the prophets, because their children are prophets also, and there's obviously a desire. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, it was a natural desire that he should have a son, like Zakaria alayhi salam, who actually makes a dua, Isma' nida'i kama sami'ta bihi nida'a abdika Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salam. Sayyidina Zakaria asked for a warith, an inheritor, which is an inheritor of prophecy, his son, and he was given Bushra of Yahya alayhi salam. So like that, Ibrahim alayhi salam desired a warith, or an inheritor of this prophetic knowledge. Now, Sarah alayhi salam was, according to that tradition, extremely old, and so according to the tradition, she gave Hajar, who was a handmaid given to Sarah by some traditions by the Pharaoh, who actually tried to rape her. And as the story is mentioned amongst our Mufassirin, is that Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he went into Egypt and was brought before the Pharaoh, Sarah was extremely beautiful, and the Pharaoh said, who is this? He knew if he said it was his wife, that he would kill him, because he knew what he wanted. And so he said, she's my sister, which is one of the lies, in quotations, of Ibrahim alayhi salam, which is really called it's not a lie in Sharia. It's a hila or a tawriya. What he meant, she's my sister in the deen, ukhti fil Islam. And so, according to the tradition, the Pharaoh took Hajar and was actually going to try to seduce her, and he went into epileptic fit. And in the tradition also it says that Ibrahim actually saw everything that happened, so he would have no doubts about his wife. And he tried 3 times, and finally he said, this is a sahira, a magician, or a sorceress. And then he became afraid of her. And one of the ways he honored her was by giving her money, and also by giving her Hajar alayhi salam. And Hajar, in some traditions, was also actually a noble woman. The point being is that Ibrahim alayhi salam, just like in our Sharia, it is permissible for a man to have relations with his amma, who's not a wife. And so this is why we reject the Christian and the Jewish view, modern, really, that Ismail is like an illegitimate son. This is the way it's presented in the West. If you even read the Bible, it's clear that Ismail is honored. He was not an illegitimate son. And certainly for prophets, it's impossible for them, because they're ma'soom, they're impeccable, and they can't make major mistakes according to all of the scholars, and they can't make minor mistakes according to the majority of scholars. So Ibrahim alayhi salam definitely did not do anything wrong. He had child with Hajar and named him Ismail, which in Syriania means God hears him. Il is God, and Isma is like Ishma. Isma is the same sami'a, to hear. So Ishmael is the one who God hears, Ismail. And which is important, it's significant also, his name. When Ismail alayhi salam reached 13, according to the Bible, according to our traditions, Imam Suyuti says 7 years of age. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Ibrahim he said that he would promise him a son through Sarah, Ishaq. And Ibrahim, according to the Bible, said, that he asked about Ismail, and that Ismail might live before thee, right? And so Allah said, as for Ismail, according to the Torah, Allahu Alam, I have heard thee, which again means the name of Ismail, God shall hear him. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Ishaq, Allahu Alam. With Sarah shall bear unto thee this set time in the next year. Now, it's important to note that he said, I will make him a great nation. Now, it is impossible for God to say that about a nation that would not be a righteous nation. In other words, the fact that it's mentioned a great nation in the eyes of God, the only thing that is great is piety, taqwa, towards Allah. So that means very clear in the Bible itself that Ismail alayhi salam would be the father of a spiritual nation, a prophetic nation, a nation following prophetic teaching, which is very significant because the only nation that is known to be descendants of Ismail are the Arabs, which is a clear indication from the Bible that the Arabs would have a religious nation, and they would be chosen by God. It would have to be, because God would not say He'll make them a great nation and then, like the Jews say, these are the enemies of God. God would not say that they'd be a great nation if they would be enemies of God, right? So Sarah alayhi salam gives birth to Ishaq, and then here, according to their tradition, it says that Hajar and Sarah had animosity towards each other. We don't accept that in our tradition. They were both righteous women, and although it is natural when you have more than one wife in a marital situation, it's very natural for there to be jealousies. But those jealousies with people of taqwa would never lead to anything that was displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you look at the Prophet's wives, alayhinna salam, if you look at all of them, there were jealousies. But there were also jealousies between Abu Bakr and Umar for the love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In other words, everybody wanted to be closest to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so that was natural. But they never did anything other than playing very simple pranks on each other. They did not do anything in any way that would have been a wrong action with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they were not those type of women. And this we believe about Sarah and Hajar. According to our tradition, Ibrahim alayhi salam was commanded to take Hajar to this place for a reason, and the reason is going to become clear. It's clear to all of us, but I mean in the story it becomes clear what the secret of taking Hajar to Mecca was. So Ibrahim alayhi salam then takes Hajar. See, here he says that we don't really know how Hajar, they were guided there. According to our tradition, and I'm surprised that he says that, Ibrahim alayhi salam took her there and left her there. It's in a Sahih hadith. Left her there and made dua for her. And she became nervous. And then she said to her husband, or really she's Walad, or she said to Ibrahim alayhi salam, why are you leaving here? Why are you leaving me here? Are you ma'mur? Did Allah tell you to do this? And he said yes. And she said, then I don't go. In other words, this is a mu'mina, right? This is a mu'mina. She said, khalas, if Allah told you to do this, then go. And she didn't have any trouble. Now, he leaves and goes back to Canaan, or to what's now Sham. And she is in this place, and there's no water, and there's no food, and there's no people. Nobody lived there. It was an empty, barren place, because people don't live where there's no water. It's well known. And what happened was she became very distressed because of her child. And so she began in the story to go running between these two hills, trying to look to see if there was anybody that she could get their attention, or to find water. And then finally, when she comes, she's shown the well of Zamzam that springs up. And from there, some Arabs from Jurhum come, and they begin to settle in that area. And the Jarahima, these were Arabs originally from the Yemen, although they're children of... There's difference of opinion about the Jurhum people. But some say Jurhum was actually the only Arabic speaker on the Safina of Nuh alayhi salam, and that he preserved the Arabic language, because Syriania, according to some of our scholars, which is called Syriac, is the language of the early Semitic peoples, and it's actually a Arabic that was muharrafa. It was changed. It was like a dialectical Arabic, or a corrupted Arabic. So she settles in there, And then Ibrahim a.s. comes periodically and visits her. And during that time of his visits, and again, there's a difference of opinion about this, but at a certain point he's commanded to sacrifice his son. According to our scholars, there is a difference of opinion about it, whether it was Ishaq or Ismail. The Quran, there's, according to Imam Suyuti, the context of the ayahs, or the verses that deal with the sacrifice, tend to indicate Ismail. But there are big Sahaba that said that it was Ishaq, including Sayyidina Ali, who was one of the greatest of the people who understood the meanings of the Quran. So the point is, the Muslim should not make that an issue, because the point of the story is not about who is being sacrificed. It's about the submission of Ibrahim a.s. to the commands of Allah and the submission of his son. Now, there is a hadith that would indicate that Ismail is the dhabih, the one who was going to be sacrificed, because the hadith says, Ana ibnu dhibhain, I'm the son of two sacrifices, and that's obviously in the story for the people who read it or the people who already know it. So, I mean, we would tend to say that it's Ismail, because there are many scholars that have preferred that opinion, but the Muslims should not make that an issue. And unfortunately, they do make that an issue sometimes when they're in interfaith type dialogues and things like that. And I think it just becomes confusing for a lot of people. It's really not substantial to the story itself. Now, according to the words of Genesis here, he says, and God heard the voice of the lad Ismail, and the angel of God called to Hajar out of heaven and said to her, what ails thee? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise and lift up the lad and hold up the hand, and he will make him a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So that's right there in there. The story of Zamzam is in the Old Testament, which is important, again, because this is part of, we believe it's an Abrahamic tradition, right? That we're part of the Abrahamic tradition, and we believe that this is part of the treachery of Bani Israel, is that they have deprived people by altering their book from the truth, but even the truth is still there embedded in the book if you look deeply, right? But there are alterations. Now, the last thing is to Genesis. Really, it mostly emphasizes Isaac or Ishaq and not Ibrahim. And Ismail, there's only one thing, that God was with the lad, which indicates that he was a man of Allah and a prophet. And he grew and dwelt in the wilderness in the Arabian Peninsula and became an archer. And he was known for his skills with weaponry. And he was a hunter also, and that is in the hadith. And then it says that Ishaq and Ismail both buried Ibrahim a.s., which is also important, because it means that there was still a connection between the two brothers, right? There was a connection between them, and they did bury Ibrahim together. And then it says also in the Psalms, there is a psalm which says, blessed is the man whose strength is in thee, meaning Ismail, and whose heart are the ways of them who pass through the valley of Becca, make it a well. Right? So there also Dawood a.s. is praising Ismail, which is appropriate for a prophet to praise another prophet and not see there any animosity between them. When Hajar and then again, according to the Quran, Ibrahim a.s. builds the Kaaba with Ismail. And that's why there's still Maqam Ibrahim is there in the Kaaba. And he sets the foundations of the Kaaba. And the black stone is here. And so basically, the Kaaba is set up Is that right? Yeah. Because I go by the south would be up there usually on the top. This is west, and this is east. So the Kaaba is basically set up to the four directions. I think it's slightly off a little bit, but it's basically set up to the four directions. And this is known as what? Hijr, what? Ismail. And this was the place, according to tradition, where Ismail and Hajar are actually buried, which is the proof for the Malikis that it's permissible to pray in a grave, a place where there's a grave. In fact, it's a good thing to do, according to the Maliki fuqaha, because this is the best place to play nafilah in the haram. There's no better place to pray nafilah, and the reason for that is, according to the Maliki ulama, that Ismail and Hajar are buried there. So there's a barakah there that's more than in other places, and Allah knows best. And then this is obviously the Rukn al-Yamani, or Yemeni, and there's the Yemeni corner, which is mustahab to touch that. Now we have around it what? What's that? Well, it's called Shadarwan in Arabic. And the Shadarwan is marble stone that comes out of the Kaaba. And that is an indication of the original size of the Kaaba when Ibrahim a.s. built it. That's the foundations of Ibrahim. The Prophet ﷺ actually wanted to rebuild the Kaaba according to the proper, because it was rebuilt several times in history. And the Prophet ﷺ wanted to rebuild it according to Ibrahim's specifications, because they were given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he felt that because the Arabs were new to Islam, he didn't want to create a fitna for them by bringing the Kaaba down. He also wanted to make a door so that people could actually go into the Kaaba. And he chose not to do that. So the Kaaba was built by Ibrahim a.s. and his son Ismail. And there's many traditions about this, but the point ultimately is in the house here, there is now, Bab as-Salam is here, Zamzam is here, and there's actually a little, actually it's not, it's about right here. You can still see it. There's on the floor, when you make a tawaf, there's a circle that says Bi'r Zamzam, where the original Bi'r was. And in here are two footprints, which according to tradition, there was a stone that Ibrahim a.s. actually, when he was building the Kaaba, it would move up for him to lay the foundation. And so his feet are in there, and you can look into there's a glass, thick glass around it, but it has the feet of Ibrahim a.s., which is again proof of athar, tabarrak bi athar al-anbiya, which is a point, taking blessing from the remnants of the prophets. That's one of the proofs. The other proof is Ya'qub taking Yusuf's shirt and putting it up against his eyes and his sight coming back. I mean, there are many proofs, but there are people now who say that, guarding the remnants of the Prophet, which is what this ummah did for centuries, is a bid'ah. And in fact, a lot of the places that were preserved by the Muslims for centuries were actually destroyed in Arabia in the last 40, 50, 60 years, which is unfortunate because Muslims don't have access to see those places. So the Ibrahim a.s. built the Kaaba with Ismail, and then it becomes a site of pilgrimage for the Arabs and for the Jews. There were Jews also that used to come to the Kaaba because they did recognize it as a site of Ibrahim a.s.'s house. Now, Also in the Kaaba, there's a stone here, the black stone, which was originally, according to the hadith, white, and it became black by people touching it for tabarruk, touching it. And what happened is it became black from the wrong actions of the people. I read that the Saudis did studies on it, and that it is not of earth origin, that the stone is actually, they would say now like it's a meteorite, right? But the point is it's not of earthly origin, the stone itself, according to that research that I read, Allahu A'lam. But we believe that it did come from outside. Now, from paradise, yeah. And an angel brought it to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he set it in as the cornerstone of it. Now, a couple of things about the Arabs. There are basically three types of Arabs, all right? The first are the Arab al-Ba'ida, the Arab al-Arba, and the Arab al-Musta'raba. The Arab al-Ba'ida are ancient Arabs that disappeared, like Thamud, Ad, Jads, Qasim, Imliq, Amim. These were Arab, the fathers of these ancient Arabs, and they're all destroyed. They were all destroyed for transgression. The second type of Arab are the Arab al-Arba, and these are Arabs from Qahtan. Right? Qahtan is of the offspring of Jurhum, and Qahtan is now the father of what are known as the Himyarites. All right? Himyar ibn Sabah, Himyar ibn Sabah was, these are the Arabs of Yemen. All right? And they have a different dialect from the Arab al-Musta'riba or Musta'raba. The Himyar people, their ancestor is Ya'rub. And Ya'rub is, according to the tradition, the one who taught Ismail Arabic. Now the Himyarites, even though they're pure Arab, they're not called Khullas. The Khullas are the Arabs of that are gone. So there's already a change. And this is why some say that Ya'rub also was not a native Arab speaker, but learned it. And some say that Qahtan is also from Ismail, right? But the dominant opinion is he's not. Now the third type of Arab are the Arab al-Musta'riba. And these are people that became Arabs. They're not native Arabs, right? And this is what you call anybody who learns to speak Arabic is Musta'rab. He's Ista'raba. He became an Arab, right? So he's not a pure Arab. He's an Arab by tongue. And Ismail alayhi salam was an Arab by tongue. He learned Arabic through the tongue. Now, this is important because the Prophet ﷺ is from the Arab al-Musta'riba. He's not from the Qahtan. He's from Adnan. So the Arabs differentiate into two groups. Adnan and Qahtan. And this is important because these are still today, there are distinctions between the Arabs, right? I mean, to this day, somebody knows if he's a Qahtani or an Adnani, if he's from the Arabian Peninsula, a lot of the other Arabs don't know because they've become city dwellers and have lost their Bedouin origins.